I'm Matt Landau from VRMB, and this is Unlocked, Season 8, First Mover Status. This episode is brought to you by Point Central, the leaders in smart home automation, and Breezeway, a property care and operations platform. Today's episode is a little bit different. It features super producer Stuart Hooper, who along with his partner Tammy and their company Mangofish Studios is responsible for, as they put it, all my media concerns, including the production of this podcast. Before we jump into the conversation, though, I needed to ask myself, what does first mover status mean to you? First mover status to me, because I am a swimmer. I don't know if you all knew this, but I swim in the ocean almost every morning. And when we don't swim in the ocean because of man-o-war jellyfish, we swim on the bay side here in Miami Beach. And my interpretation of first mover status has to do with swimming races. And something I've learned from swimming more and more lately with fast people is that if you sit in the pocket just behind another swimmer and you catch their slipstream, not unlike cycling, you have significantly less resistance. I want to say it feels like 20% or maybe 30% less resistance in the water than the person in front of you, which of course allows you to save energy and ultimately plan your strategy. But that's the second person. That's usually me sitting right behind the leader. And when I ask myself what first mover status means, to me, it's the leader. It's the one that is probably better trained, probably stronger. It's the one who's taking on the full resistance of the water, but also the one that, if they do exactly what they think they can do, leads the race the entire time and ultimately wins.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've had several first movers on the podcast this season. I feel like some of them are definitely there so that you, the listener, can go into the slipstream and not necessarily have to fight all the resistance yourself. We've had a few guests mention that as well, that sometimes it's a common problem in technology. You know, the first adopters often get somewhere first, but they also can face more challenges. So it's interesting whether you want to be that absolute first mover or if you want to be right behind them. But either way, there's a lot to learn from them, and we definitely need them in the industry.
And listeners, if you don't recognize that voice, that is super producer Stuart Hooper on the other line. How are you, Stuart?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thank you.
And for those of you who have not met Stuart, he has been working with me together with his partner, Tammy, and their production studio, Mangofish Studios, now for the better part of 10 years. We started off as neighbors, and now we do crazy business together. Stuart is sitting inside of his own home/vacation rental. Stuart, I'm curious to hear how the transition of turning your home that you built there into a vacation rental is going.
Well, it's going great. We've been working on it for a while now. We took it back over in 2019, and there's a lot of maintenance and such that needed to be done. Our main focus is getting it set up as a production studio we could use to do all the post-production on our various projects, including all of yours. And we've successfully done that. We're off the grid, so power is a challenge and that sort of thing. But just a couple of weeks ago, we brought a band down from the US and did a documentary music recording and film recording shoot here. And in order to get ready for that, we had to have AC in all the rooms and all the linen straight and all the staff straight and everything completely ready. And coming out of that, I now feel like we can offer it more openly to guests, normal guests. They don't all have to be film or music people. As we travel and film. So that's very exciting for me. Even simple things like a housekeeper and people that can run the power systems and stuff like that are a challenge here because we're down a 6-kilometer dirt road. And so that's all been worked out. And so the place is humming. So I'm really excited. Ironically, we're going to be gone for about a month, and I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to put it on some OTAs myself and have my staff run it, or turn it over to a property manager in the area for just for the month, because long term we're going to be doing it ourselves. So interesting time, interesting choices to be made.
Well, having traveled and sat down to as many interviews with me as you have, I think you know enough to be dangerous as a vacation rental professional. And I'm curious, are you using any technology yet?
No, we're not using most of the technology that we talk about in our podcasts and media, which is something I definitely need to work on. My door locks are old, and we, other than WhatsApp and some OTA stuff, guest check-ins and stuff, it's all very analog, very old-fashioned here. Other than the film, music, and power technology. So definitely need to work on that. We are going to need a property management software as we move forward, and we're going to need to automate some things around the home. I'm really looking at some of the smart home systems. One of the things that we because we want to be able to film and have people rent it for a location and that sort of thing as well. Want to be able to control all the lights remotely, have some voice activated commands and that sort of thing. So that sort of smart home tech will probably be rolled in with smart locks, but we have not gotten there yet.
Excellent. Well, Stuart, I have you here today because I want to read you something.
That sounds like a lovely idea, Matt. What are you going to read me?
So I am extremely excited to have published my first article with Focuswire, which is the editorial side of Focusrite, which is a leading travel as a business research platform. They host these great conferences. And I wrote an article for them, and they actually accepted it and published it. And it's called The Unsexy Truth About the Sexiest Sector in Travel. How an $81 billion race to scale one of a kind could go wrong.
That sounds fascinating, Matt. And I'm proud of you for getting into the publication. Didn't we just have someone, wasn't Madeline on the show a few weeks ago?
We did. Madeline List was just on the show a few weeks ago, and I'm actually going to mention her in the second section of this article. How would you feel about letting me read this out loud? We can provide a link in the show notes and then have a little takeaway or two.
Fire away, buddy. Fire away.
While not by any means a new phenomenon, travelers are choosing vacation rentals over hotels more frequently than ever before. And thanks to the rise of platforms like Airbnb and Vrbo, one might assume being a host to these travelers is easy and profitable too. Vacation rental revenues set to cross $81 billion in 2022, and with no major constraints on supply, there's plenty of money, big money, trying to get a piece of this pie. Vacation rentals may be the sexiest sector in travel, but spend more than a few days peeling back the layers and you'll find an operationally complex craft nowhere nearly as sexy as it seems. Think cleaning toilets. Stuart, are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. This sounds like the intro to one of our shows. I'm hooked. Continue.
Well, I do just want to interject real quick that I did include Sarah Bradford's quote, "We scrape poop off toilets," at the end of this section, but it didn't meet the editorial guidelines. And I really did fight for it. I mean, I fought hard. I will die for poop. But in this case, it didn't make it into the final draft.
What a shame.
All right, we go on. What's sparking vacation rental demand? The pandemic accelerated travelers' search for space, privacy, and value. But to really understand vacation rentals, you need to look at one defining strength: personality, or as Focusrite's Madeline List calls it, character. Each vacation rental is different. It's quirky, charming, special. Each vacation rental owner is unique, sharing their passion for a destination with visitors. So this character is what travelers, and especially younger travelers, are increasingly seeking and posting to Instagram. which is fueling this cottage industry of property owners and managers, or what we call home runners, who see opportunity in delivering character professionally. In fact, the Vacation Rental Management Association's International Conference this year at Caesar Palace in Las Vegas will break attendance records with 3,000 attendees. The conference's showroom floor will look not unlike some of the biggest trade conventions in the world. Collectively, these attendees, these professional vacation rental managers, are serving character to the masses. But how? One of a kind by design. I've spent the better part of the last decade studying these businesses, and to best explain the secret sauce, I developed the theory of limited edition. Inspired by the world of antiques and collectibles, limited edition concludes that objects that are limited in supply and steeped in personality can command top dollar with loyal collectors, sidestepping commodity marketplaces and creating value on entirely new terms. Their terms. Most vacation rental professionals, whether they knew that there was a name for this or not, practice limited edition by doubling down on 4 core differentiators: family, owned or operated; locally based, not headquartered anywhere else; specialized in any given property type or region; and surprising in delightful ways, not unlike some of the best boutique hotels in the world. These differentiators, by the way, if you like acronyms, spell out FLOSS, which is a wonderful reminder to repeat them regularly for optimal results. Now, focusing on limited edition gives property owners and managers the chance to compete alongside and even collaborate with the best in their market, which has proven to be really powerful in adjacent sectors such as craft beer, where mom and pop breweries brew together to wield strength in numbers on important matters like regulation and standards. Limited edition also appeals to traveler preferences to support small and sustainable businesses. It creates the personalization and trust that's needed for any repeat booking campaign. Limited edition even appeals to home owners, many of whom prefer relationships over transactions when it comes to companies managing their family home, their most valuable asset. So does limited edition scale? Almost by definition, it does not. But that's not stopping plenty of players from pushing the limits. According to Goldman Sachs, more than $17 billion in funding has been invested across multiple companies with limited track records and relatively small portfolios of assets. All of this based on one unavoidable truth: that technology is powering an entire generation of limited edition property owners and managers to extraordinary new heights. Activities that used to be redundant, like reservations and key replacements, are now automated with reservation software and smart locks. Solutions that did not previously even exist, like guest vetting and dynamic pricing, are now part of the everyday tech stack. This technology is unlocking the time and the energy needed to double down on the limited edition activities that home runners can do best, serving as a complement to limited edition hospitality, not a replacer of it. So instead of trying to scale limited edition, the best vacation rental companies are recognizing its limits, then using technology to roll out standards that deliver it consistently over time. And listeners, this is my big conclusion here. I want to repeat it one more time before we move on. Instead of trying to scale limited edition, the best vacation rental companies in the world are recognizing its limits, then using technology to roll out standards that deliver it consistently over time. The unsexy truth is that this challenge is very difficult, but worthwhile. I share my tips on how to achieve it, as well as case studies on the leaders currently doing it in VRMB's weekly newsletter. You can sign up on the website. So, what makes this race different? It's an $81 billion race to scale, one of a kind. What could go wrong? Well, everything. Unlike disruptors in transportation and retail, vacation rental disruption can be seen, heard, touched, and even slept in, which makes the race to first mover status about way more than just market share. The winners of this race will have profound effects on the communities in which we live. Done well, they serve as economic engines and pillars of community leadership. That's all the people that listen to this podcast. Done unprofessionally, however, they can negatively affect a block or a neighborhood for decades. There's a lot riding on the vacation rental category right now. So what does it mean to be vested? In his latest op-ed, Carl Shepard, the co-founder of HomeAway, argued that property owners and managers need to do a better job, if for no other reason than to save themselves from being banned outright. And these owners and managers, as Carl explains, have the most to lose, so the onus is on them. And we will feature a link to Carl's op-ed in the show notes. But I believe the accountability crisis in our industry cuts one step deeper. All stakeholders, especially those who have the most to gain, must also do their part. Like with any healthy community, this means showing up to be part of the conversation, sometimes difficult conversation, uniting behind standards, and being aware of the system that sustains us but could crumble if we don't find some balance. Self-interest is great. Just play the consequences of your actions out a bit further than the next fiscal quarter. I'm so passionate about this movement that I'm producing a docu-series called Home Runners that goes behind the scenes to explore some of the boldest attempts to scale vacation rentals without losing the little things that make us great. And Stuart, this is the point in the article in which I insert the two trailers from our first two episodes of Home Runners that you guys have so magically produced. What did you think about my article?
I loved it. I think it brings together a lot of the concepts that you've been articulating over the years, and I'm happy to see it all kind of gelling. And I do think that this home runners concept that we're working on is the combination of all those things, and it's a way that we can show what the people that we've worked with, the people that are listening to this podcast, the people that we meet at conferences. It's sort of like they're part of this secret world. Oh, it's just renting rooms, renting houses, but they all know that it's deeper than that, and they all know what they're doing, and they all know what they've been through. And the idea behind home runners, and I think a lot of the points that you're hitting in that article are something deeper that we can share with the world. And I think people will be interested to see what goes on and what goes into creating these vacations and these stays and these getaways that have become more and more and more important to people since the pandemic. So I'm excited. I'm excited for these two episodes to come out, and I'm excited to go make some more.
People often ask Stu what goes into creating these episodes of Home Runners, and I first start off by saying that they're basically each one of a kind documentaries in which we go into these stories completely blank slate and really listen and try to learn exactly what is the story here and how do we tell it. And one of the overarching themes we've found in calibrating the expectations of people who are considering entering into our industry is this is hard. This is really hard. The people who are doing this successfully do not live um, glamorous lives. In fact, according to Sarah Bradford, we scrape poop off toilets. Do you have any final thoughts on, as you get into the vacation rental industry, what this is hard may mean for you?
Yeah, I mean, certainly at the scraping poop off toilets level, even just a couple of weeks ago, having a full house here with 10 bedrooms, also filming a documentary, but also being the main guy that knows how all the systems and maintenance works. I spent quite a few early mornings and late nights covered in diesel, fixing leaks, under sinks, that sort of thing. I mean, it definitely keeping the pool clean, covered in chlorine. There's a lot that goes into it at that level. But I think in the shows that we've been doing, we've also seen a couple of the biggest players, well, the biggest little players in the industry. They're not really the biggest players in the industry, but they're the biggest of the independents. And they're beyond maybe the cleaning poop off toilets themselves level, although clean toilets still have to be in every single one of the properties that they manage, even if they're managing 5,000 properties. And I think the challenge of scaling and the challenge of standardizing a limited edition experience, which is sort of an oxymoron, as you state in the article, that is really interesting. And that is really hard, right? That's something that the hotel industry, I mean, they've got standards, but they don't have the limited edition. They've never really been able to do. And we see some really limited edition folks in the vacation rental industry, but we have not necessarily seen them scale to thousands of properties. So that space that we've kind of focused on for the first couple episodes, I find really, really interesting, because if they get it right, it's going to be a huge thing for travelers and really change the kind of Russian roulette experience you sometimes get when booking a vacation rental on, Airbnb. Um, and if they don't get it right, then it's not going to, a lot of people aren't going to have that limited edition vacation rental experience that we love so much. So it'd be very interesting to see um, how they do. And if you want to find out, you have to watch the show.
Nice segue, Stuart. If you're listening to this and you'll be attending any vacation rental conferences this year, you will likely meet Tammy and Stuart. Stuart looks kind of like one part rock star, one part caveman. That's how you'll be able to pick him out. Come up and say hello, and don't be scared. He doesn't bite. I also wanted to point out, in my FocusWire interview, we talked a lot about how technology is powering independent property owners and managers to entirely new heights. That tech-enabled side of tech-enabled hospitality is really what makes this home runner movement so unique. Owners and managers have never had this kind of power before. And two specific categories of technology are represented by two companies that are also the sponsors of this podcast. The first is Point Central, which represents the smart home automation technology category. The more I am learning about this stuff, the more it strikes me to be the future core of any vacation rental technology stack. It puts the technology in tech-enabled hospitality, smart locks, smart thermostats, water leak detectors, HVAC analytics, being able to track all of this stuff from your iPhone or your computer, wherever you happen to be. Opening the door for guests remotely makes it feel almost like magic. These are game changers, and it's the kind of investment that once you make it, you could basically never see yourself going back any other way. Head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB, where you can do a demo and also download a white paper that I wrote with the former CEO, Sean Miller. That's pointcentral.com/VRMB. The second genre of technology is property care and operations, and the company that spearheads this category is Breezeway. They're probably the most organically mentioned company in the vacation rental ecosystem. People absolutely love them and try to convince other people to get to use it too. Breezeway enhances the speed of communication amongst your team. So if you think of it like an internet connection, a low speed means for inefficient work. And conversely, if you are firing on all cylinders, if that speed of communication between your team members is high, you get to be much more efficient and your guest sees the outcome. You can head over to do a demo with Breezeway, and if you decide to actually begin using it, they will waive the implementation fee. That's a $1,000 value, simply by heading over to the following URL, breezeway.com/VRMB. anchor.io/VRMB. Next week, we'll be releasing the final episode of this Unlocked season. It features somebody that all of you know with some very fascinating news that you probably didn't. Until then.